The cloud. Hey guys, it's Lori Moffitt, Team Shine, and thanks y'all for coming in to our Zoom today for some year-end tips and conversations. I heard somebody telling their husband they needed to be on because it was going to be all about taxes. And while that's kind of true, the truth is that Teresa and I will give a disclosure at the top and the bottom that neither of us are tax preparers, and nor will we give you any tax advice whatsoever at all. What I will do is kind of run through some things that I have learned over 25 years being in direct sales and filing taxes. Keeping in mind that my husband is an independent consultant. He has between 26 and 40 1099s every year. So what is applicable for us as a family married with children and everybody has a 1099 might be completely different for your family and your tax situation. But the things that you'll maybe learn from this is what you want to gather and document to take to your tax preparer. I hope that that makes sense. What we all should do and what I aspire to do every year and what actually gets done every month as you go along is two totally different things. What we should do is every single month gather the things that we're going to talk about and put them in an envelope so that when you go to your tax preparer, it's all done and complete. And if that's what you do, then I aspire to be like you. If you haven't done anything like that, then this is the Zoom for you. Hang on a second. Stephen's asking me if his friends can come over tonight. Limit 2. Okay. So what I thought that I would do, and I have a document where I typed this out, but a conversation like this, y'all will be able to help us add to it. But what you want to do is you'll need to know what inventory you have at the end of tomorrow. So your people, your tax preparer, your husband, your sister, if you're doing it yourself, you'll need to know how much inventory you have in stock at the end of the year. So I will upload into teamSHINE Excel spreadsheet that might help you, or you can just take a catalog and do it that way. But you'll definitely want to have your inventory. So then it goes to like everything else. And what I normally do is I'll take a piece of paper and I'll label them January through December. And I'll go through my calendar to think of what events I had, what places that I went, traveling that I did, if I did a regional meeting, if I traveled to see Kelly or Teresa or Kate, like any of that kind of stuff. What helps me is to go back through my photos on my phone. Because let's be honest, if you do something in regards to business, I promise you took a picture, right? So I'll go back through, scroll, not every photo, but I'll just scroll and it will remind me of all of those things. And so at the beginning, all I'm doing is making a list of events, that kind of stuff. So in January, I went to Fayetteville, North Carolina to help with I'm getting distracted by the waiting room, to help with a training up there. And so I write that down because I know that when I go back through the other things that we're going to talk about, it is going to remind me of the hotel and the travel and the gifts and the this and the that, and that all goes into different places. So you're going through and you're making a list of your events from January 1st until tomorrow. All right. So then the other thing that going through the phone will help you do, if you have not made a list of the products that you used. So if you need to make a mental note of every nail fee of yourself that you did. If you're in a certain kind of tax bracket and you're doing itemized, you can deduct the products that you use. And I'm not saying that everything that I'm going to tell you to write down and gather will be applicable for you, because everybody's tax situation is different. But the more that you bring to your tax preparer, the bigger the picture they will get of what a real business you are running. So that's something that I give. I also will go through and print out a history of my PayPal, my Venmo, my Cash App. I go and my eSuite fees. I also go through my Amazon, which this year is ridiculous compared to other years, right? Teresa had the brilliant idea that she's actually going to create a business Amazon account, even though it'll cost a separate Prime account, to not have to pull out family stuff. There's no telling how long that's going to take for 2020. I mean, right? Did anybody fall in love with their Amazon? Yeah. Okay. So, but I tend to use Amazon because it's collated all in one place for a lot of business stuff. And so it has reminded me of things that I forgot that I sent as a gift or a business supply or whatever. And so going through those things in order, go all the way back to January and run through, is super helpful. Hi, Tabitha. Thank you for muting. Okay, so now let's roll on to your VIP space and think about all of the things that you have done in there. If you bought envelopes and confetti and glass files and Starbucks gift cards and face masks and all of those things, if you didn't get them from Amazon or you didn't remember where those were, sometimes seeing that progress in your VIP space will remind you. In a VIP space, if you had any graphics done, if you paid someone to make graphics, you'll want to collect with that. I know that we didn't have a lot of events in the middle part of the year, but January, February, March, or even recently around here, we definitely have had some fall events. So you'll want to make a copy of that contract and what you paid for the fee, and if you traveled there and back, and your gas, and even your lunch while you were there, any of those kinds of expenses. And that is also where I keep up with things that I give away at an event. All right. Okay. And so then anything else that you have bought this year that's applicable to your business, if it was a new computer or a label maker with the labels, a tripod, lighting, thank you cards, a tent, any of the displays that are business enhancers from our VO, that would all be contained in one place. Paper, ink, envelopes, bubble mailers, your square reader, if you upgraded to the chip reader, which, as an aside, one of the reasons that you want to get the chip reader instead of just the little swipe one is that if someone uses their card and it has a chip and you don't have a chip reader and they have some kind of fraud, you can be liable for that. If I have a credit card and it has a chip and I use it somewhere and they don't read the chip, I don't have to pay that bill. I myself have actually had 2 charges disputed from a case where I was working an event in January and I have a chip reader, but I had a second person working at the event and they just used the old swipe. And because the card had a chip and I used it on one that was just the free swipe, they didn't have to pay their bill. Like they disputed it with Square and Square sided with them. So as an aside, you really need to invest in a chip reader. And the good thing is that is a business expense. Any display, if you changed your display for storage, that kind of stuff, make sure that you keep up with those receipts. All right, that was a big list of things. Teresa is gone. If you have any questions specific to something that we've already covered, you are free to unmute.
Sorry, someone was at my door.
That's okay.
I have a question.
But I was listening to all of your brilliance.
Go ahead.
I don't have any.
No, somebody had a question. Go ahead.
This is Lisa. I had a question. Is there a computer program that you use that helps to keep track of all of this? I'm just not very familiar with that.
No, my husband gathers all of our stuff to take it wherever magic place that he takes it to. I'm hoping to, when I do my taxes for him this year, to create an Excel spreadsheet. There are a couple of things that you can buy that say that they are for direct sales, but everything's so generic. I haven't ever found one, even the ones that I bought for $19 or $39, that I didn't have to kind of recreate anyway. There are a couple on Quicken, there are a couple on Etsy, but you still have to custom do them for you, just because I don't run my business the same way that you do. Maybe you don't travel, maybe you don't do events, that kind of stuff. There are a couple of things on Etsy. They're proprietary. I wouldn't be able to share them if I paid for them, but there are a couple of things on Etsy. Yep, Shannon, your internet, very good. I had that down. I might not have said it out loud. And again, if you have a home office like I do, there are certain things that we're able to deduct because it's 1/10 of our square footage or whatever it is. You're able to do it that way. I don't know if that's applicable because we're both self-employed. We don't have any W-2s. It's all 1099s. And so that's the kind of thing that you'd want to ask your tax preparer. It also matters whether or not you made over, I think it's $600 or $900. Like some people who are just getting started, they don't really have a home office. There's not going to be a whole lot of stuff that's deductible for you. So you want to be super careful about the things that you willy-nilly spend money on thinking that it's going to be able to be tax deductible. Kate says she uses Quicken and she makes it and it's easy there. Very good. Yeah, definitely. I will print the, if you have a question, you can just unmute. Unmute. I'll print the chat and try and come back and make a post in teamSHINE so we can kind of capture some of the questions and answers.
Lori, this is Jennifer.
Yes, ma'am.
My question about reports is because I know now in the Color Street, the virtual office, that we have the ability to extract into Excel certain pieces of information for our records. And because I started this before we got to that level in our system, I've sort of been doing things in an old school fashion. And when I place an order for my own inventory, I'm also printing out that order confirmation so that I know also what's coming to me. So it's kind of like a checks and balances. And so when I do that, when in the beginning it wasn't so bad, I didn't have a lot of orders, but now it's a little busier. I do a lot of online events because they're not in person that much.
Right.
And so I have to keep my inventory moving, but it's a lot of printing. So it's paper, it's toner, and then it's, putting it back into a spreadsheet. Is it enough to just pull that information at the end of the year and just just focus on my purchases alone, or do we need for tax purposes to have like a physical receipt? Because once I have those physical invoices printed out, at the end of the year, just to get the paperwork out of my house, I'll scan them and then I'll save them electronically. And I'm wondering if I even need to have that electronic copy, or because it provides like an itemized description of everything I've bought, all the different sets. Or is that spreadsheet we can extract out of Color Street just enough, the date, the order number, and the total value?
I think as long as you have access to print it, I will tell you that Brian and I have been under an audit for 3 years, and Lori doesn't throw away anything.
Okay.
Like it's 10 years that the IRS can come back and say, hey, do you have a paper copy of this? And I know that I can make copies of receipts. I don't have to have the original of everything. And
Mhm.
so as long as you have a way to print it, and if you scan it and have an electronic copy and you needed to print it, maybe that would be sufficient. Like I
Okay.
said, our taxes are very involved just because of the way that Brian does business. He's an independent consultant, and last year I think he got 42 1099s. So you can imagine 42 1099s. You can imagine all of the stuff that we have to keep up with. So I will say that ours are extreme, and so I don't really know how to extract my stuff to know if his business wasn't so complicated, would it be simpler for me? So that's why I don't ever give anybody tax advice. I will tell you that that's what we do, that's what we keep. And not everything that we submit to our tax preparer is eligible, but I would rather have it all and tell them how we use it, tell them how I use it for business, and how much of its usage is business, and be able to deduct a portion of it. If you don't do deductions, then you're better off just taking the standard. But only you and your family situation and your tax preparer will know that. But it's just those kinds of things that I wanted to help people to, maybe you never thought about the fact that you bought a light ring and all of that kind of stuff. I don't really use a light ring, not for business. It really is for business.
Thank you. It sounds like I'm doing what you're suggesting for you personally too, is a good way to go. And maybe I don't need to necessarily print out each one of those order invoices. If I just save them to PDF
Right.
and keep it at that level, then I can save a
Right.
lot of paper, which in the end is going to save me a lot of costs because it's wear and tear on a printer.
Right. For sure. For sure. And I think
I'm a record keeper too. I'm afraid of the government. I don't want to be audited, but if I am, I want to be ready.
well, I mean, it is definitely the reverse lottery. We're almost done, and it it has not been fun. Okay. Did somebody else have? Yeah, Connie says she's going to go QuickBooks. There are several different things out there that are good, and you just have to find somebody. I know that Teresa and I have talked about, I think that once you get to a certain level, and I would even say you have to ask yourself if it's senior director and above, but looking into an LLC or an S Corp, there are just some tax breaks that you have access to at that level that you might as well, right, Teresa?
Yep, setting one up.
Yeah.
Yep,
Teresa's down shaking her head because they own their own businesses too. And it gets more involved. It kind of gives you an umbrella. The tax laws are written for people who own their own businesses. True story. All right, let me see if I missed any questions. Yeah, everybody says, please mute. Yeah, that was in the beginning. It was a little loud, but I hopped on early, and I think that we do miss each other's faces. We do. Very good. Did anybody else have any questions? Teresa, let me look back at our notes. stamps.com. Did we talk about that?
Yeah, that's if any like pirate ship, any of those things that you use to mail. I know that I was really late to the game with doing my own postage until 2020 when all of this happened. But that is something that I would suggest, because going to the post office and keeping all of those little individual receipts gets super, you lose one, you don't want to do that. So paying that pirate ship, I think, is even free to use. Getting something like that set up for your business really is going to, and it saves you money because it's cheaper than going to the post office. Your postage is actually a little bit cheaper than going and paying the post office. And yeah, that's something that I suggest that everybody set up.
Yeah. Joy, if you have a question about inventory, just feel free to unmute. There are several people trying to get in, so let me click all of that. And somebody said, what do you do with it? Dottie, I'm assuming last year you had a list of, so say you had $1,400 in inventory at the beginning of the year, and then you have all of this activity and you end the year with $400 in inventory. Your tax preparer needs to know how much inventory stores do it all the time. They have to account for what you still have. And so it is one of the reasons that you may want to run a $10 special in your VIP space. Tell your people, look, before I have to count all of this, does anybody want, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's why stores do inventory reduction sales, because they don't want to count it all. Joy, did you have a question about inventory?
Yes, ma'am. You answered quite a bit of it, but one of the questions that I was going to ask regarding inventory is, let's say that we have 250 sets as of tomorrow. Then at the end of the year, do we subtract that 250 from the starting point? How does that work?
No, on my taxes, there's a line that says year-end inventory. Like you don't necessarily do something with that number until you go and put it into whatever the schedule is that will ask you what the value of the inventory is that you have.
Okay, so
Because it's an asset.
Go ahead.
The inventory that you have on hand is an asset for future sales. Like, it's an asset.
Okay, so that, I think that you just answered that then. Am I correct in saying then that a vendor event that I have coming up in January, it's not bad for me to have as much inventory as I have right now because I'm building up?
For sure, for sure.
Okay.
It's not bad or good. It's just a number.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if you had an event in January, I would expect you to have a little more on hand than, after your event.
Okay. But it's still good to clean out inventory at the end of the year?
If you want to get rid of it, sure.
Okay.
Yep. If you have an event in January and you need on-hand inventory, then you may not be in a rush to sell it, because then you won't have it on hand. That's why I said everybody's thing is different. You're a business owner, and everybody kind of has to gather all of the information that they can to make their own decision. If somebody didn't have anything until after February, they may want to, clear out anything that they have. That's different than someone who has an event in 2 weeks, for sure.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Of course. Teresa, what did you have to add?
No, I was just saying, I have lots of inventory, so don't worry about your inventory.
You
Sorry.
do a lot in your VIP space. And I think that the smart thing for people to think about inventory is never order more than you can afford. Never, if you're not selling it, the last thing that I want you to do is just buy it. I don't want people to buy inventory. I want them to sell product. And I think that that is key, that's just it. I'm not worried about somebody like Teresa who, may have 5 figures in inventory in PV this month because I know she's selling it. Right? Does that everybody shake their head if they understand? I don't want, the whole reason that a lot of us started this business is to make money, not to spend it. The last thing I want to see is people going into debt. Our business model doesn't support that. Yes, I have a lot of inventory, but I also sell a lot. Like it's a constant thing. If you find yourself with lots of, the original packaging, put that towards the front, discount those, get them off of your inventory. Unless it was something where they repackaged those because the packaging was crazy. But when you ordered stuff, do like stores do and put that towards the front and make sure you're pulling your oldest inventory first.
So I was also going to point out that I know that 2020 has definitely been different than any other year in the past because we have kind of hoarded inventory, especially in April, May, and June because of the situation that we were in. So this year might look a lot different than next year is going to look for you. I personally, I was ordering everything for my customers, like whatever I could get, I was ordering because I didn't want to send them to a site that had nothing on it, or when it did go live, it was gone in 3 seconds. So now I'm back to my customer, I'm trying to get them back into the whole group of going back to the website. And that's actually been pretty successful the end of November and this month. I haven't personally done a lot of selling from my inventory in my VIP group because they have been going to the website. But so this year is probably going to look different for you with inventory as opposed to last year, or even this coming year is going to look, and that's completely expected.
For
So
sure.
don't freak out that you have a lot. But yeah, I totally, this week would be, today and tomorrow would be a great day to be like, hey, $10 sets or $9 sets or whatever you do in your VIP group, just to, get rid of some of it and get back on for 2021.
Yep. So Jordan is asking, is it easier to file if you're not itemizing? Yes, that's easier. But if your life and your household income and expenses dictates not doing the easy, then you're going to pay more in taxes. And that's the kind of question that I can't answer for you. Is it easier to do the non-itemized? Yep. But we probably would have had to pay double in taxes by itemizing. So it just depends. If you don't own a home, if you know what I'm saying? Like we have almost 6,000 people on our team. Nobody's going to get the same advice. So I guess the short answer is yes, it's easier if you're not itemizing, but you own a business. You may need to do it both ways and see which way is better for you before you decide which way to file. All right, I think that is all the questions, unless anybody has any other questions.
Hi, Lori, this is Cindy. I just had a quick question.
Of course.
So when you say kind of add up the value of all the sets that you have in stock, as of tomorrow, is the value the actual value that the set would cost normally? Or are you supposed to try to figure out what you got for free versus what you got with hostess discount benefits? Or is it just like the straight up value that it would cost on the website?
I added up the retail value of everything that I have in stock because I also keep up with my hostess rewards that I earn. Like that's another line item that I keep up with. And what the tax preparer does with that information is up to him. Like I don't try and do the math for him. The asset of the inventory is retail value, street value.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yep. All right, I am going to stop the recording.